will now call this November 28th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 5 p.m. I'd like to begin by saying that we respectfully acknowledge that land on which we gather is the unceded ancestral territory of the Silks Okanagan peoples and the Splatsin of the Secwepemc Nation. We begin with the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a mover? Councillor Valstar, seconder, Councillor Drapala. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. And then we have the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes, that the minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting of September 24th, 2024 be adopted. Get a mover, Councillor Todd, Councillor Drapala. Any errors, omissions? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. And we will move along to our information updates. And we have our carry review. Lori, are you starting us off or are
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly can. So thank you for coming together again in a special meeting to discuss the next phase of the 3D renders of the Comprehensive Armstrong Revitalization Initiative. So tonight, we've included still Pleasant Valley Boulevard North, just mostly for context, as Council has already directed us to proceed to design on that section. But tonight, the team will be presenting to you the rendering of the other sections of Pleasant Valley Boulevard South and Pleasant Valley Road, basically from Smith to Mill and Okanagan to Bridge. So that sounds confusing, but I think as Christine walks you through it, it'll make more sense. So tonight, again, we have Jeff and Christine from McElhaney. And Christine, with that, I will turn it over to you. And please use your microphone.
Okay. All right. Nice to see you all again. All right, so we just wanted to start off with some of the first two renderings are some that you've already seen, and they are referring to the Pleasant Valley Boulevard North couplet that we are already engaged in doing detailed design of. So, but just to give you a bit of a recap, what we've proposed is to go ahead with the parallel parking options, which we've discussed before, which also allows us to increase the public space along the north side in front of the businesses, and enhance the plantings and put in some street furniture that will allow this space to be activated a little bit better, a lot better. We also have some raised crosswalks that go across to allow safer transit from the south parking up to the north. And there's a little key plan at the bottom there that shows you where this view is from. And there's a view of the Okanagan Street crosswalk and some of the enhanced landscaping that we're proposing. So we'll be keeping the two large trees that I noticed have all been lit up for Christmas already, and increasing the public space area. There will be a reduction in the lanes that are crossing. We're realigning the roadway so that it connects properly with the intersection across the way. And then also creating more public space, and there will be wayfinding as well, seating so that the adjacent businesses have a bit of extra space that they can use as well.
Lori?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. If I may, it might be easiest to ask questions as we go through the presentation as they come up, or do you want to hold them to the end? I guess it's at Council's discretion.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to ask them as we go along. It might be easier for everyone. So yeah, just raise your hand if you have any questions, and we'll pose those questions. Councillor Fowler.
So I realize that we've already, I'm sorry. I realize that we've already moved forward on this, but since you're here in the room with us, I'm wondering if you could just comment if you foresee in the future a problem with only having the one lane coming out, whereas we used to have a lane to turn to the left across the tracks, or yeah, to the left across the tracks. I know it's already moved forward. I just thought that I wanted to make sure everybody understood that we only have the one there. There will be backups when the trains come across. But the bigger thing for me is the parallel parking. If there's a stop at that stop sign and we have vehicles backing up because of various reasons, Parallel parkers are also sitting there. It's a bit of, it just seems like it might be a bit of a grid rod. So I just wanted to know kind of your thinking and reasoning behind that.
Yeah, so there's I guess a few points there. So I mean, number one, for safety, the road safety study that was done had identified that we did want to reduce the number of lanes entering the intersection for safety purposes. So with the current configuration, you have multiple cars lined up at multiple different legs of the intersection, and it can be more challenging or more confusing for drivers to understand who got there first. If you're trying to spot, is it the car at the left turn lane? Is it the car at the through lane? So part of that safety aspect is to simplify the intersection and make it so there's kind of, 4 places where you come into the intersection. There's not 6 or 7, depending on how many turning lanes there are. So that was a strong recommendation in there, that we simplify these intersections because they're already very long. It's already difficult to see across that train track crossing, especially if you're on the far side. So this is part of that safety improvement, is to reduce the number of lanes coming in. The other thing is that, reviewing it with our transportation group, the intersection just doesn't seem to have enough traffic, especially Pleasant Valley Boulevard North, to need dedicated lanes. That's something you might do if you have an intersection that's really at capacity and you're trying to squeeze a little bit more out of it. The traffic loading that we're seeing here from the city of Armstrong counts doesn't suggest that we really need to be having dedicated turning lanes in order to get that traffic through the intersection. So it's kind of, it's not really increasing the traffic that much, but it's also potentially at the same time causing confusion as people are trying to see where these cars are all sitting and turning and where they're going. So yes, there can be situations, like you said, with the train tracks where, yes, the vehicles could kind of queue up. It'll take a little bit for them to get going again. The other example might be kind of those 1% events, like when the IPE is active, where yes, you could have vehicle queuing that could cause that to stack up. But one of the big changes from going to angle parking to parallel parking is that when you're parallel parked, you can actually signal and move out into traffic, and actually kind of merge in with the travel lane. Whereas when you have the angle stalls, you need enough of a brake that you can fully reverse and back out. And it can be difficult for drivers to understand what you're doing. Whereas with the parallel parking, if traffic is moving slowly, you kind of get your signal, you start to nose out, and the vehicles will let you merge into traffic rather than kind of being stuck until there's enough clearing for you to back your vehicle out. Sorry, was there something else in the question about the parking? Just kind of the...
Sober second thoughts, and I agree with all of those. I just wanted to be sure that everybody has the confidence to stand up to the community and let them know all of those reasons, and that we all have that in our back pocket. And if we are caught in the traffic and we're 6 or 7 back in front of the Legion, don't stop in for a drink, stay with your car. I guess maybe one of the times I woke up at 4 a.m, I thought, well, maybe why don't we just have the one where you can just whip around to the right and go down Wood Avenue, and at least that would shorten. But I would assume that people who are going to be driving through town would take Wood Avenue. It doesn't mean that the people who are in some of the parking areas along there wouldn't be able to, but I understand that, and I look to the future. I just hope in the future that we're still okay. And I would assume that the worst case scenario is that there's a change. It means taking out part of one of the curbs one way or the other. But anyway, I just I wanted to bring that up and make sure we find that we're making decisions, and the people who aren't coming to our consultations and whatnot are often anxious when they hear decisions that are made that they may not agree with, and they don't have all of this information in their minds, in their heads, because they haven't maybe done all the consultation. And so we find that a lot of the comments in my mind are opinions versus facts. So that's what I wanted to have that chat for. Thank you.
And just a couple more items on there. Just I was thinking about we're talking about potentially lowering speed limits through this section as well too. So that can also contribute to the feeling of comfort that drivers would have, coming in and out of parking spaces. Is if there aren't vehicles approaching at 50 kilometers an hour. If it's something a bit lower, that can again increase that feeling of how much of a time gap you have between vehicles coming up the road behind you. And then as well, if we're able to get this truck route, divert some of those larger vehicles off this road, that would also hopefully reduce, the amount of time that you're waiting to pull out of a space. Because if you have those larger trucks queuing at the intersection, waiting to make those turns, that would block a larger section of this chunk of road. So the changes that we're making, they're as a whole, they're going after a lot of different areas, whether it's pedestrian experience improvement, get those big trucks off the road, reduce the speeds, improve the safety, but also kind of create that public space where we're able to do all those together, kind of in tandem, to try and make them all work together without sacrificing the experience of the drivers in the area.
Councillor Feller.
And just as a follow-up, for those people who did come to our last public open house, I had several of the people say to me that after seeing the drawings and a better kind of visual of what it will look like, they were quite satisfied when they left. I do still hear people concerned about not being able to park directly in front of the building that they want to go to. And I said, well, don't forget that we're also talking about having some handicap spots in some of those areas. So there'll be maybe even less parking than you might have thought. So anyway, the Bank of Commerce has their parking lot. So there's the restaurant and the pot shop and the liquor store. Those are the only three in that area. And when you get down farther into the street, you've got parking on both sides. So this end might be a bit congested.
Okay, this is an image showing Pleasant Valley Road west, so just across, not far from where we are right now. What we are proposing here is to have the multi-use pathway come along on the south side. The current crosswalk across from the post office, we would have a bump out to make it more visible and safer, and we would also have a new transit shelter put there as well. And so the bus stop should be a little bit nicer. And with a bench, etc. Enhanced lighting as well to make it a safer experience for folks coming along. And otherwise, putting in some parallel parking. I think we're going to be possibly losing a space there.
Yeah, I think we were aiming for a neutral on this
Neutral on
road.
this one, right.
And this is kind of that interim condition that we discussed at the phasing plan, where we're going to retain the angle parking on the north half for the current iteration, but with the opportunity in the future to also increase public space on the north side of the road by the conversion of those angle stalls into parallel stalls.
I had a question quick, just with the multi-use path. It's with bicycles going back and forth along the multi-use path and the parallel parking on that side of the road. I'm concerned about cyclists who are riding along that road and a door opening from one of those cars. I know it's a really common accident to have where a door is open in close proximity to a bike and you just go right over that door. I'm just wondering if that's something that is considered or something that we can consider. Just what I'm seeing there is a bit concerning to me.
Yeah, sure. It's a really constrained site. Like there really isn't a lot of room there. But the design of the multi-use pathway would be narrow enough to allow that buffer.
Yeah, or we can separate it so you've got pedestrians on the one side, cyclists on the other, kind of divide that up so you've got the higher speed traffic not directly adjacent to the vehicles.
Yeah.
If I may, Your Worship, what I would also add is, as we're talking about this, remember, we're just at the high level concept phase. So I think we note down some of these things so that when we get into the design, we don't forget about them and we make sure they're addressed. Because I think I can see a number of ways we could tackle that for sure.
That's all I need to hear. Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Valstar.
Thank you very much. So yeah, the first one that I wanted to, just a question, the multi-use path is how wide?
We've shown it at 4 meters, would you believe? Yes.
4 meters, okay.
Yeah, which
Okay.
is very generous for a
Yep.
two-way multi-use pathway.
Yeah, I was just curious on that. And then the second thing is if you go back to that previous drawing there, is it typical for a bus to stop mid traffic and stop the traffic going back and forth, or is it more typical for a bus to pull out?
See Lori's hand up in the back there, Lori.
Let me address that, Counselor Valstar. So we had originally in the design shown a bus bay, which took a dramatically large amount of room. So we set up a meeting with BC Transit to talk to them about what their requirements were and their functionality. They actually suggested that we do not use the bus bay and that they would prefer to have the bus stopping in traffic as long as we have a landing spot adjacent to the bus for the passengers to get in and out of. And they sent us some specifications to follow. So that is what was used to develop this. It was based on their preferences.
Okay, yes, and I see that using that and then also incorporating the crosswalk there as well is just kind of maximizing this space while retaining as much parking as possible in that area.
That's
So,
correct. And then
perfect.
also for one of the things that was really important, and you can probably see it better on this view because you can see the size of it. Right now, the crosswalk is somewhat blocked and it's difficult to see when people are coming. So by pushing those dividers into the road, we'll be able to see people when they go to cross more easily, and it'll be way less dangerous than it was before. And then we just integrated the bus stop into that because that just makes it a bigger feature, and people on the bus are likely to need to cross. So having them at the crosswalk is beneficial.
I think that addresses Counselor Valsar's question. Is there any other questions? Counselor Todd?
I was just gonna say, just clear it up for me. The bus, how many times the bus come through in a day? Is it 4?
It, through your worship to Counselor Todd, and the bus doesn't come very many. And it only stops there as needed, right? So if there's people there, it'll stop, or if somebody pulls the thing, it'll stop. The way our bus system is set up, you can call the bus from any place around town. So if you're walking down the street and you see the bus, you can wave it down and it'll stop in the street there as well. It's an interesting kind of rural system that we've got.
Counselor Fowler?
Yeah, sorry about the buses again. Does the bus only go east to west, not west to east?
Through your worship to Counselor Fowler, it's my understanding it goes both directions at this location, but there currently is not a formal bus stop on the other side. It just stops. So now they'll be able to stop at the corner of where that platform is, and there'll be a landing spot, which I think will be better for accessibility and for people getting on and off the bus.
Okay, I think we can move along.
Okay, now we find ourselves on the other end, and this is this is Pleasant Valley Road to the east. And this is if you looking at where the new rail trail would be coming into the city. And so we have proposed to have it a split grade, so it's not on the same level as the road, it's up on the curb. And so that's pretty nice in terms of the traffic speeds, and that's where it would come in to the downtown core. So it just gives you an idea of what that could look like.
Counselor Valsar?
Thank you very much. There's currently a pullout in front of the cop shop. I don't know if that's something that they use on a regular basis. There's like a bump out that's right in front of the police station. Sometimes I see cops use it and emergency vehicles and that kind of stuff. And I see that we're losing that in this particular drawing. Is that a requirement? Is there, maybe Lori, you can talk to that?
Lori?
Thank you, worship to Counselor Valstar. I don't think that it's a requirement, but we will discuss with the RCMP before we were to enter design phase on something like this, just to make sure functionally if it's beneficial to them. I have seen a lot of people park there. So it just adds a little more congestion to that corner and just one more thing that's happening in this already confusing area. So if they don't dramatically need it, I think it is beneficial to try and bring the sidewalk down there properly.
I'm all right as long as we open up a conversation with them and ask them to make sure that there isn't a specific reason for it to be there, but.
Any other questions? Right. Oh, Lori.
If I could add one more thing, one thing that we haven't got to the place of yet is talking about lighting really. And I know that this one of the goals of the project is to try and bring some kind of lighting to this side. So that would come in later in the design phase to see if we want some kind of lighting on there. I know that it was really important to the chamber to be able to bring Christmas lights on that side. So that's something that would happen as we enter that design phase as well.
Thank you, Laura. I think Paul Britton would also be very happy with that if I recall, but is there any other questions? Councillor Feller? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Counselor.
Actually, it's not unrelated to Councillor Fowler's question about Okanagan. But that one three-way turning lane there is a bit disconcerting and has always been to me. And I understand the rationales for safety and making it. But it's the same kind of situation we have with the other intersection. There's room there if we don't fill in that space in front of the cop shop to have a turning lane. I can understand not wanting a turn lane across the bike path, but just to alleviate the hassle and let people turn left there instead of having to force everybody. You're not funneling everybody down Okanagan, I understand that, but I can just see nothing but backups there, but that's just me.
Did you have a comment, Lori, or?
Your worship, my only comment would be that turning lane just adds such a level of uncertainty because people don't stop there when they're supposed to. And the removal of that would be more about safety. But as we get closer to design, maybe we look into that and make sure the numbers don't cause problems. The backups that I see typically are from that four-way stop in front of at Smith there, all the way back the other direction, more so than this way. But it's certainly something that we'll definitely explore before we design it.
Just a quick follow-up there. And I agree completely, and it's all about education and time. And I think if once people get used to it and realize that it's not just to make them angry, people will, develop different driving habits. And like Councilor Warner said earlier, perhaps they'll just go the back route, go down Wood Avenue, things like that, instead of driving through downtown to get to where they want to get.
Councillor Fowler, then Councillor Belser.
Thank you. So you took the words right out of my mouth. So thank you for bringing that up. The kind of the good thing about doing this project in phases now is that we'll be able to see how the other phase goes. It'll be all in place before we start working on another phase. And if we do decide that maybe that wasn't the smartest thing in the world to do, to not have a turning lane in front of the country diner, sorry, that's not what it's called, then we'll be able to make that amendment on this one, because this isn't anything that we're going for in stone. This is a concept. Is that correct? So just so everybody knows that. Thank you.
Councillor Belser.
Thank you very much. I exactly what Lori said. I just wanted to comment on me being totally in favor of this particular intersection change. The number of times I've been out front of Shepherd's and people don't even stop at that stop sign, but when they do, and then they go and they don't put on their left-hand turning signal to go straight because they're going straight, but they're not turning. There's a lot of confusion. And I think maybe slowing down people coming into that intersection with this particular spot might alleviate that a little bit. It will be a learning curve, and there will be times that it's backed up, and it'll be tough. But I think I like that particular change.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if we can carry on.
This is further to the east along Pleasant Valley Boulevard South. And so you can see what we've done here with the multi-use pathway. We have put it at the same grade as the road, and then it just carries on through. There is some enhanced lighting as well that we're showing that'll give you an opportunity for some community branding and lights. But otherwise, the south side of the road is unchanged in terms of the parking. And you can kind of see in the corner there that new proposed urban plaza that we're putting in as well. And just the next slide, Lori, will show both of those views in plan.
Councilor Valstar, other question? Sorry.
Yeah, is there, when there's a multi-use path, is there an additional requirement that we have to provide additional lighting for? Like I see that there's a fair amount of lights all along that way, and I know that you mentioned enhanced, but is there a code that we need to uphold for that kind of path?
It'll be a decision made about the level of lighting that we require. And so that's not necessarily a strict code, but we'll kind of decide, like, is this a heavily used pathway or one that's seldom used? And so that'll determine the spacing. I know they look a little bit close right there. And then
Okay.
based on that, the lighting luminaire that is chosen based on how much light it kicks out will be the next decision. So, I mean, you can get some that really kick out a lot of light, and so you don't have as many standards, that sort of thing. So it's
And-
an imprecise answer.
I think Lori is going to chime in there too.
Oh,
Did you have a comment?
Just one more thing to add is we've had an initial meeting with the lighting consultant on their team, and they've started that analysis of how much light it'll throw. We've had conversations about level of lights that we're interested in, and we'll have more information coming on that as we move forward.
Okay.
And that was specifically for the north side, but we'll use similar principles for the other sides.
Okay, and the second one, those fancy bollards along there, are those solid steel or are those floppy plastic?
I'll take this one here. So just for what we're showing on here, it's kind of we would call these like a quick build type lane. So the idea here is that rather than having to rip everything up, we can actually take advantage of the fact that there's nothing on the north side of this road to actually just kind of drop in these concrete delineators. Those are flexible barriers. They aren't steel. So they're designed to be, to move and flex if something strikes them. So they're kind of just plastic or fiberglass kind of.
I've got no comment either way. I was just curious.
Yep.
Councilor Todd.
And the white line, is that a raised curb or is that just a white line?
That is they're concrete precast segments.
Okay,
So
so
you can
they're-
actually,
There's a bit of a hump there.
there's a bit of a hump there. Yeah, they're usually about 6 inches high. And they're used to separate the travel lanes.
Councilor Valstar.
Just all over this tonight. The multi-use path, how is it finished? Or how is it planning to be finished? Is it planned to be similar to the rail trail with the natural finish like that, or is it going to be asphalt? Just curious.
Well, with it being a quick build, the idea with the quick builds can be that you use the existing road surface if the existing road surface is in good enough condition. So this is something where the idea is that you can drop it in more quickly. Now, granted, if we're increasing the lighting, we would have to do some trenching and lighting along the north side. But by and large, the idea of rolling these out is that it can give the city an opportunity at a relatively lower cost to implement these, the bike lanes. And especially for this road where we're not changing the south side of the road, it can be kind of a quick way to get that network built out. So you can get that connectivity. We do the Pleasant Valley East, then we bring it along Pleasant Valley South, and then you just have to make that connection along Pleasant Valley West by the post office to make that connection to the Taylor Van Diest Trail Network.
Thank you.
Other questions? We can carry on. Thank you.
That's it in plan view. And I suppose the interesting thing about this plan is that you can see how the multi-use pathway aligns itself to cross over the intersection, and it creates a little bit of an island on the south couplet of Pleasant Valley Boulevard. With the idea of, again, keeping the intersection simple, clear, safe. We know it's already a complicated situation, but we think this would be the best solution to that issue. And so here's a rendering of that, the plaza, the town plaza center that we were talking about. We referred to it in a previous iteration. And again, this is the existing parking lot that's down beside the Wild Oak Cafe. And what we're doing here is we're We're putting in a public bathroom in the south corner there. You can see it, it's in dark at the back there. And that would have access from the parking lot as well as from the sidewalk. There is an overhead canopy structure that that predicts maybe a future larger building. We don't know, but there's also lots of bike parking, and it also creates a number of seating areas that will be complementary to the businesses just adjacent with seating, and it would just be a lovely place to have community gathering and give the town of Armstrong a little bit more capacity for that.
See Laura with her hand up.
Yeah, so a couple things that I wanted to highlight for council. We are losing a little bit of parking in this transition, but there will be parking at the back that would be accessed by the lane. The bollards would be able to be removed to allow food trucks to come in. And then the one road change that we're recommending is to remove some of the plantings in front of the park to increase the parking, which would then balance out the parking that we lose in the park itself. Yeah, might see it better on the,
Yeah, do you see that there was there's an existing bump out that was by the access just to the east of the park that's being proposed, and we've removed that, and we've gone from 28 parking stalls to 32 along that block, so that it gives us a bit of an increase. And it also, I mean, yeah, it would make it a little, if we, I mean, maybe Laura, you want to speak to closing off access to that lot, but.
yeah, so the one change that we see as, and we've already kind of indicated it's coming, is closing off access to the front of this lot because they have lane access. This will definitely mean a change in pattern for people who use that parking lot, but it also, I think, creates a little more parking. It separates off that street. Most of, not all of the businesses, actually, most of the businesses don't have street access in there. They go around through the lane as well. So it just brings it along. We are, Councillor Fowler, I know you noticed, would be losing some of the planting beds in there. But we're gaining that park, so there's quite a lot of greenery being added. So, yeah.
Laura, where is the access to that parking in the back there? How do you, is it the lane or how do you? get there?
Yeah, there's a lane, and in the little tiny diagram, you can see the lane here. It runs back along these properties here. And then Shepherd's Lane is just here on the other side of what used to be the Pink Rock and the gym. There's a lane there and it loops through. Yeah.
The lanes there. And then do we know how many roughly parking spots the difference would be between what's there now and what would be? But there's 28 and 32 on the front, but within the parking area.
I believe that we were losing 5 spots with the creation of the park, and we gained 4 spots on the street. So we're only down 1 spot.
That's perfect. Thank you.
I also wanted to point out, just on the intersection with the Okanagan there is an enhanced bit of landscaping just outside of that business that has a bench as well as a bike repair station is indicated. So we know that particular business wanted to do something there. So this is a nice way to dovetail it in.
And then just, it's a little bit unrelated, but I had Christine sneak in a new light standard over here, and then add the potential to maybe talk to the landowner about having a bench on that corner there where there used to be plantings and it's all been cut out. So those obviously would need for future follow-up, but if we could get a decorative light standard there, we could put banners on it, which would draw the eye down towards Okanagan, which we know is a big concern of the businesses down Okanagan, but we're very constrained on Okanagan to add stuff.
I'm just thinking back quite a few steps when we had the intersection, the crossing there on Pleasant Valley Road, that crosswalk there. Is there any need, like where would you consider having a lit crosswalk versus just a regular crosswalk? Because the traffic that's through there and the bikes that may be going back and forth, is that something that should be considered?
Just to clarify,
So yeah, you had that.
Okanagan and Pleasant Valley, I've got the right one? Okay.
Go back forward one slide, I think. So that intersection, Therese, the crossing there from the, Pleasant Valley Road to
Mill.
Pleasant Valley. Yeah, yes, exactly, across.
Okay.
No.
I think I can find that. Hang on, this one. Is this the crosswalk you're referring to?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm just wondering, like, what would come, thinking there would probably be a lot of traffic going across it. It's a busy intersection. I'm just wondering what consideration for a lit crosswalk there, or if that, what the thoughts are about that.
So this crosswalk and this whole intersection is going to be a bit tricky, and we need to consult with the train company on what we can and can't do in proximity to that crossing. So I would say there's certainly a possibility, but we will have to investigate it as we get towards that design phase.
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. In Kelowna, a couple of months ago, I noticed where the rail trail comes in through from the campus into downtown Kelowna. And it crosses, I think it's 4 lanes of traffic at least. And I think there's a railroad traffic and a junction. And they have a special crosswalk just for when the bicyclists can go across. I don't know how else there would have been any safety way to do that, but maybe that's something we can incorporate at some point if it gets that busy.
So the question is, sorry to backtrack a bit, we can carry on. Thanks.
Any more questions on the parks section before we move on? Okay, I just have to add that I'm quite excited about what this could do for our downtown. Having a bathroom downtown is a big request, but also I think it'll really support our festivals and all the events that we have downtown, and it'll help some of the businesses have a really nice place for people to grab a coffee and go hang out. And I just think it can be a really great addition to our community.
Councillor Fowler.
I love the term plaza for that as opposed to a park because you don't want to confuse people. You only have one plaza planned.
Okay, and then these are concept designs for a future signage strategy. So just a bit of a brainstorm, and we've had a fair bit of back and forth about this, but the idea being that we wanted to use materials that referred to Armstrong's industrial and agricultural past and maybe refined it a little bit, and then brought in a bit of a pop of color just to make it a little bit more exciting. And then, yeah, there's a few different iterations of how that would look. So we're looking at posts that are large rough hewn timber and then strapped together with some steel, and then some anodized aluminum or steel signage that goes with it. And so there's a number of options there, from pedestrian wayfinding to maps to announcement signs to trail markers. And this would be expanded upon at a future date. And then an idea for an entry sign along the highway as well. And so we're pretty jazzed that this could be a very adaptable signage concept and could be used in a number of different ways. So
Any comments, questions? All right.
and then these are some images just showing some of the details that would go into the urban design aspect of this. So everything from the fencing, the standard fencing that would go along the rail line, to some more decorative pavers and concrete treatment. The furniture suite that we've been looking at, it's pretty adaptable. There's a number of different iterations of it, so different ways it could be used: backed benches, unbacked benches. And then a bike loop, like a bike rack. It's a loop design, so fairly simple. As well as the proposed lighting that would be used, as well as the BC Transit, the standard transit shelter. So that's just something to look forward to.
All right,
Okay.
looks good. No questions, no comments?
I'm happy to take back over for a minute if there
Okay, Councillor Valsar.
Yeah.
Just a comment. I know I prefer backed benches to unbacked benches. Just a comment. And it just, yeah. If it comes down to it, back support for a lot of the people in our community would be appreciated.
I agree. Definitely. There are a few instances when we might benefit by having an unbacked bench, i.e. where's the bench facing? So we might have certain spatial arrangements where it makes sense to have it go both ways, but typically, yes, I also prefer backed benches.
Is there any other questions? All right.
So, Your Worship, if I may,
Yeah.
I have put forward a report with some recommendations. And tonight we're requesting that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council endorse the three-dimensional renderings and overview plans for Pleasant Valley Road, both sections, Pleasant Valley Boulevard South and the downtown park. And that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the multi-use path to the east side of Mill Street be set as phase 2, that the multi-use path on Pleasant Valley Boulevard South be phase 3, and that the timing of the downtown park and Pleasant Valley Road west of Okanagan be brought forward once progress has been made on advancing the first 3 phases. So I might request that you consider those separately. There's a big mouthful in there.
All right, let's consider the first motion. That the Committee of the Whole recommends that the Council endorse the three-dimensional renderings and overview plans for Pleasant Valley Road, both sections, Pleasant Valley Boulevard South and and the downtown park. A mover? Councillor Fowler, second, Councillor Todd. Questions, Councillor Fowler?
I'd like to make that motion for sure. I just want to reiterate for anybody who's listening and for the conversations that we have in public, that this is the not set in stone, people. This is just the concept plan at this point for moving forward for the other 3. So I just want to make sure people know that so that they know that there's time to think about it, talk about it, plan for it.
Thank you for that. Yes, this is for the 3D rendering drawings. Is there any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? And carried unanimously. All right, moving to the second motion that the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that a multi-use path to the east of Mill Street be set as phase 2 of the project. B, the multi-use path along Pleasant Valley Boulevard South be phase 3. The timing of the downtown park and Pleasant Valley Road west of Okanagan be brought forward once progress has been made on advancing the first 3 phases. Can I get a mover? Councillor Todd, seconder. Councillor Valstar. Discussion. Councillor Fowler.
I'm just wondering the thoughts behind not getting Pleasant Valley South done before we do the path coming in. The multi-use path to the east of Mill Street is where the rail trail people will be coming as soon as the spring arrives. But we're gonna be inviting them in, and then we're not gonna know where they're gonna disperse when they get to the corner. So I'm just wondering the thoughts behind not doing Pleasant Valley South next.
Laura, did you want to comment?
Yes, through your worship. I think the reason we recommended it that way was just to get them into town off the rail trail right away, and that there was a sense of urgency in the partners of making that connection because of where the rail trail is ending right now. And just bringing them into town. They will, once they get there, be able to cross over to the sidewalks and walk through downtown. But again, it's at council's discretion. If it seems like more of a priority to do Pleasant Valley Boulevard South, we can do that, and we can reconsider as we get closer if circumstances change as well.
Yes, so along with that, has there been consideration to moving forward in the plans to have a parking area there so we can actually welcome people to town to park their cars and get on the bike? Because we have experience with Coldstream just getting crazy there. And I don't know, I know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but there's a lot of steps.
Lori, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Counselor Weiner, to Counselor Fowler. Thank you for that question. We are working on a number of pieces that we have are having kind of confidential discussions with landowners to try and figure out how to place that. We also are working on a bit of a highlight of a design of what that could look like. So I want to assure you, we're working on it in the background, but we just aren't at a place where we can release it publicly.
Counselor Todd.
Does it make any sense to do the east side of Pleasant Valley and then at the same time, just do the multi-use path down Pleasant Valley South and then break that into two and then do the plaza later on? Like if it's a quick build, all you're doing is putting those concrete blocks down, sticking the post in the ground, and then you tie into another path.
Lori.
Thank you. Counselor Todd, we have already split them up. So the park has already been separated from that quick build multi-use path. What I would say is it'll all come down to money, right? It still costs money to put the barricades and delineators. Maybe we'll have money to do both phases at once, which would be amazing if we had money for that. I've just separated them so we can have them designed and budgeted separately.
Are there any other questions? So my question is originally that these phases were broken up in timeframes, and I'm just curious about what these phases mean and what, potential timeframes we're thinking in terms of this.
Thank you for that, Your Worship. We have removed the timeframes. The reason we put the timeframes in the first place was because there seemed to be a lot of anxiety that everything was happening tomorrow. And so we would put them in to give the community a sense of the scale of time that we would be working on the project. I have removed the timeframes currently because I really do think a lot of this work is going to be budget dependent. And I think we're going to have to rely on grant funding as well as looking at what we have available in the applicable reserves for some of the work. So we could put some timeframes on, but until we have a funding strategy, I'm a bit hesitant to do that. I'd like to see how long it takes us to do that first section and how much it's going to cost and how much we have to budget. And then maybe we'll have a better idea of timing as we move forward.
Yeah, so if grant funding came through, things would move faster. Outside of that, it's going to be quite slow moving as we progress. We chip away at it, is what I'm hearing. Councillor Fowler?
Thank you. I'm really anxious to see the Pleasant Valley Road be repaired. So much so that when we get a chance to have a strategic plan session, I will be bringing forward that would be my main strategic plan for next year. Just saying.
Are there any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. All right. And that's it. So I'll call. That's right. It's pretty much blank actually. So I'll call for adjournment. A motion for adjournment. So move, Councillor Todd, seconded Councillor Valstar. All those in favor? Carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.